So I get so scared when you go in front of people, you know. Like Taylor said, we are very thankful to have people pray for us. It is really comforting to know that no matter what you're doing, having people pray for us. So we really do appreciate your prayers. Like Taylor said, God definitely does answer prayers. Sometimes God doesn't quite seem as alive in our lives as what we would like to see him as, but that's probably because it's probably more on our fault. We don't pray the way we should, I think, at times. But anyway, it's the most amazing thing, and the thing I prayed for most about this trip was the things that have fun and for safety and for boldness. But the thing I prayed for most for myself and for all the students, that we'd walk away with a greater love for God and a greater knowledge of who he is. And the thing that I think stuck out to me the most was every night we would do a devotional. I'll tell you one story about New York that was probably the greatest thing that happened to me. But every night we did devotional. And one of the devotionals we had to read Isaiah chapter 6. And then he asked us what was the whole chapter about. As a whole, what was it about? And we were saying it's about God looking for someone and all these kind of answers. Then one of the guys, my friend Abe, he said the whole chapter is about how man views himself when he sees God. And the first few verses, the very first verse, it says Isaiah saw the Lord sitting upon a throne. And then on verse 5, Isaiah's response after he sees God, Isaiah's response is, "Woe is me, for I am undone. I am a man of unclean lips." And that stuck with me throughout the rest of the week, as it helped me realize that I cannot do it by myself. But anyway, I'll explain that in just a second. I promise it won't go long. I'll do my best not to. It was the best week of my life, I won't lie. It really was amazing. New York City was like a different world. I live in Minnesota, which is all farm country. So being in New York City, every building was just huge and massive. It seemed that way. So it really was awesome. There's so many people there. It was great. It was life-changing. It really was. So if there's ever a way, I know that you guys take a New York trip, mission trip sometimes. So if you ever do, I encourage you greatly to go because it really is awesome. Like I said, what we did was in the mornings we'd go down there and we'd share the gospel. We used a rope trick, which I think you guys use the same rope trick. And the first time I did it, they kept on telling me that when you do it, people will look at you. So don't be shocked by that. So I kept on going that over my mind. So when I do it, I can't get scared. So the first time I did it, I think there's like 25 or 30 people. And when I said, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, they all looked at me, and I was like, oh, man, this is scary. So I quickly, but by God's grace, I was able to do it. I promise you, it was all by God's grace that any of us were able to do what we did. There was many souls that were saved. Many people heard the gospel. Many people said that they would make a decision when they got on the bus, when they got home. And it's amazing to see. I'm talking to myself here that a lot of times we get scared to share the gospel. We don't think people will listen to us. But you can ask every single one of the students. We had several times where people would run up to us and say, "Hey, I want one of that. I want a tract that you're giving out." One time, it was the very first day I was doing it. I was passing out tracts, and a guy comes out of the subway. He opens the subway train door, and he gets out, and he was drunk. And he looks at me. There's like 3 people around me. He looks directly at me and points at me and says, "You, tell me about Jesus." And he wobbles over to me. I had to catch him because he thought he was going to fall. But I had to share the gospel with him, and he said he understood everything I was talking about, and he said he was going to make the decision. But then again, I don't know. But that's just amazing. You see God work in so many ways. And I think the thing that I learned most was how God works when we're serving him. And anyway, my last story I'll tell you, then I'll get off. Thursday was the hardest day for me because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was like everyone would say, you get more of a desire for lost souls. You no longer see them as people, you see them as souls. You're no longer afraid of them, but you don't fear them, but you fear for them. And you have just a greater love for God. So my problem was when it came to Thursday, I wanted to do so much more. I was praying that the whole city of New York would be saved, like Paul prayed for Israel. But like I said, my problem was that I ended up trying to do it on my own strength instead of relying on God. And I messed up several times doing the trick. People would ask me questions, and I would try to argue with them as best as I could. I was trying to do so much for God that I ended up doing it on my own strength, and I failed. And that's why I kept on bringing myself back to Isaiah. And then Friday came. I was like, God, I just want your will to be done. I've always been praying for my desires. What are your desires, and what is your will for this day? So I said, God, just bring one person that I can share the gospel to that will be saved. And it was honestly the most amazing thing. I know I'm probably taking too long, but it was the most amazing thing. It was down the subways. They said down the rope trick, and I passed a guy a track. And what I do is when I pass a guy a track, I watch them as I'm going around. I keep my eye on them to see if they're still reading it. If they're reading it for more than like 10 or 20 seconds, I'll go talk to them about it. And the guy was reading it, so I walked over there and I talked to them. And if you know anything about New York, the moment the train comes, they leave right away. I talked to him. 4 trains went by, and he just sat there and he talked with me. And at the end, to make a long story short, at the end, he's like, you know what, you're right. I have 5 Bibles at home. I know I need to be saved. I just haven't done it yet. And so he says, "Can you show me how?" So I explained to him one more time. He's like, "I want that." Yep. He says, "I know I need to be saved." So I said, "Would you like to pray?" He says, "Yeah." So I want to be saved. And he was praying. He prayed the prayer of himself, and I did all I could not to cry. I was so happy. I turned and gave him a hug afterwards, and I prayed for him. But it was amazing. I said, "God, just bring one person," and God brought me that one person. He got saved. So it was awesome.